This conference will now be recorded.
All right.
Awesome. We did it, y'all. And so those of you that just joined, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Michelle is one of my cheese heroes and one of my mentors that has taken me through many a food show sampling the finest product on the planet. I feel so blessed to have you tonight. As
So
for the
happy to be
best
here.
viewing, you know, you're amazing. I know that you just said it's 7 o'clock, so New York is banging pans and cheering and
Yes,
what
we
is it?
go out every day and live with someone who like takes his pans and just got clang, clang, clang at the top of until we can't hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's a lot of support. That city comes together when they need to. I grew
No.
up right outside of New York City, so I know it well. And well, thank you for being here. For those of you that are watching, the best way to experience this class is if you, in the very top center of your screen, there should be an option to view active cameras. And that would be the best way to watch because that will make the video content and the presenter content the most front and center, most graphically appealing. And Catherine said great hairdo, which is awesome. I'm assuming it's for Michelle, but I'm going to take the compliment too. I feel great about that.
I didn't think that my camera was on when that came up, but thank you if it is.
Yes,
I
yes.
thought it was for someone else.
And Corbin, you asked if this was going to be recorded for later. It sure is, which is awesome. And we got lots of delicious looking wines, some Cava, some Sauvignon Blancs, Gewürztraminer. It looks like y'all are taking care of yourselves today, which is awesome. So we have a lot of great content. Michelle, I already said you're one of my mentors. Do you want to actually properly introduce yourself and tell them why you're a badass cheese woman?
I don't know. I I guess what I'd like to say is that we are very proud we're importers of cheeses from Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Croatia, but we kind of consider ourselves as the voice for all of our cheesemakers. So we know each and every cheesemaker that we work with. They're not just like buying and selling relationship, but these are people who we really care about and they care about us. So important events like weddings or different things, we might spend them together. Um, every time that I talk about the product or I see a piece of cheese, I think about who the people are and who the people are behind it. So we're always trying to tell the story about everything that's there because for us, that's the most important. Well, it's as important as bringing you as perfect cheeses can be from a faraway country and getting it here and respecting it so that by the time you're putting it in your mouth, like tonight, you will just have a glorious experience.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty perfectly. Michelle has been instrumental in the majority of my family adventures, my cheese trips. If you've been on any of the Facebook Live videos, I've shown pictures, and typically Michelle is my travel planner. She says, show up at this place at this time, and you will have one of the greatest experiences of your life, and it's true.
I
It's like
try and make the play dates with your kids. I like trying to make that happen.
and that was awesome in Oliva, yeah. So an amazing woman all around. We're going to be sampling 6 cheeses tonight for Michelle. This is the plate that everybody got curbside pickup today. Oh, I should have taken the
Nice.
tops off to make it look prettier. Kendall's going to be so disappointed. And for those of you playing
Where's
at
the
home,
fine china?
no, this is all compostable palm leaves. It's we switched to a few years ago. It's fantastic. So the bits of bread or cracker will be at 12 o'clock on your plate, and we're going to go around clockwise. And for these producer events, I kind of like to just sort of dive right in because there's a lot of content, quite a bit of video. The amount of knowledge in Michelle's brain is incredible. And so definitely feel free to ask questions. I will pass them through to Michelle as the event goes on. And I think we should kind of just dive in. Originally, Michelle, you had said that you'd want to start with maybe the Corcuera video.
Well, you had mentioned it, but I don't mind. But do you talk at all about just like general things about how to eat cheese and rinds, not rinds, or how to like compose a cheese plate, like the different options. Do you do that, or has that already been covered, or?
This is it's unscripted. You and I get to play. We'll get the rind question right around Casata de Bufala, when somebody's actually
Which is
died.
our first cheese.
Yeah, exactly. That'll come up naturally. We do talk about tasting. I'm the way that Kendall and I describe tasting, and what we have on your plate tonight. This is the little tasting experiment that I'll do, Michelle. These are the Marcona almonds that we get from you, which are delicious. So assuming you're not allergic, um, oh, you guys pulled the cheeses off your plate. You'll see. We'll try to identify them as we go, Christina. These are the Marcona almonds. So what we do, Kendall and I, typically at the start of every class, is we do like a little get your palate ready. And so what I want everybody to do, take one of these nuts, assuming you're not allergic, and go ahead and pinch your nose and start chewing on the nut. And what we're doing is isolating the tongue, which picks up salty, sweet, sour, bitter, and umami, roughly. And pay attention to what's happening. Keep the nose pinched. And when you feel like you know exactly what this almond tastes like, let go and slowly exhale out through your nose. Now, Michelle, there's 120 people pinching their nose right now, which is awesome.
Should
And
I
so
talk about what a Marcona is, or?
yeah, as soon as it's done, as soon as the experience, because this is the aha, hopefully, moment for some people, because now you're going to get such a different experience in your retronasal, this retronasal action by breathing out. Why don't you talk about Epidemax and about these amazing nuts?
Well, Marcona is a variety of almond. So a lot of us, when we just grow up and eat or go shop for things, we just think of a category. And we don't think about just how many different things that there are or how many choices. So Marcona is a variety of almond. And if you're looking at them, they're rounder than the almonds we grew up with, if we're talking California almonds. They're not as pointy, they're tanner. When you eat them, they have a higher oil content and they're actually much more fragile. And part of what makes them special is, in general, almond trees tend to flower in March, and these flower in February. So they're much more fragile, they're fruitier, and they just have a sweeter taste to them. And it took me 10 years, 10, to track down the name of this almond so I could try and figure out how to bring it to this country. And so I work with growers and I work with people who also fry. This is an almond that doesn't get toasted or dry roasted because you'll break it and damage it. It should be fried. And I know frying for some people sounds terrible, but it's the best way to treat it with respect and to get the best flavor profile. And so I hope you're noticing just how floral and softer that they are. And it's a perfect way to start because it's one of my very, very big favorites. And what John's talking about is he met the Almond Sisters. So they're one of the two producers I work with, and they're these two wonderfully beautiful people inside and out who do a fantastic job frying these product for me and sending it over here.
Yeah, the facility is amazing. The smell and aroma inside the facility we got to bring the kids in and they just fell in love. They also do caramelized pecans and these chocolate covered cashews and chocolate covered almonds, and heavenly, so good, right? So the rest of this, do you want to add anything else to the tasting?
I think I would just say that it's, since it's so delicate, that frying process is really important. And another thing that some of you who have been experiencing Marconas for a long time might wonder sometimes why they come packaged with so much oil. And this is a good thing. We have them specifically packed in sunflower oil, and for the reason that it protects the product. So if you were to just ship it dry, by the time it got here from Spain, it would taste a little sawdusty because the salt ends up falling off, and then almonds naturally absorb the oils around them. So it would end up being dry. And so what I wanted to do was them to always taste fresh and for the salt to stay on them, because when I would eat them by the handfuls when I was sitting at bars in Spain, they always had the oil on them. And so I didn't want them to come dry and bald.
Yeah, they're amazing products, and I feel blessed to get to eat them myself tonight. So I think for the rest of the tasting experience, basically, we're going to look at everything. Michelle and I will kind of guide you through what we're experiencing or what the product should be looking like and tasting like. But definitely pay attention to what's happening on your palate and your nose. Taste, aroma equals flavor in our mind. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing tonight. And what makes this event so special is the effort and care that went into some of the content that Michelle and her team and the producers have put together just for us to enjoy tonight, which is super cool. You know, I got goosebumps just thinking about the fact that I get to see inside of these places tonight for the first time ever, along with y'all. And so what we wanted to do, there's one producer that isn't on the plate tonight, but that I got to visit, and I just love them, just outside of Toledo in Spain. And they're just amazing people. And they did a little video. A lot of the producers are certainly affected by COVID, just as we are, if not more. Some of them are even in, we'll talk about the first producer. They've been affected. And so they put out these sort of PSAs. And I thought this one was super awesome that Michelle shared. So Michelle, if you want to turn off your camera, I'm going to share my screen, y'all. And you can see this video that they put together. And hopefully I can figure out how to make it work. Somehow I'm going to try to make it work. All right. No, you can't see that, can you? No, you can't see that, can you? I'm almost there, y'all. This one is, all right, here we go. Can you see my screen? I think so. Here we go. This is from this Corquera producer. I just thought this was awesome.
They did an awesome job.
And we'll tell you what it all says in a minute.
It's all subtitled.
All right, that was awesome. That was awesome, y'all. So that was just a little video, and I thought it was so cool. It's kind of gets to the heart of what makes the producers that Michelle works with so special. Now, of course, my computer is trying to freeze on me, so it'll just be a second as I go to meeting back together. Here we go. And so, Michelle, if you want to put your camera back on, that was just, I thought, a really cool little fun way to get started. It brings a smile to my face. And you know, those were the frontline workers. The owner was in that video. So many people that came together. Just, you know, it's a small business, and they were all part of it. And so super cool. That's our one of our Manchego producers, and Campo de Montalban, if you recognize that name. They're just sweethearts. And so we've got some cheese to taste now. And so, Michelle, the way that we'll do this is we have all the video content, and we've got all the cheese. You'll be able to narrate over the video content, so you can talk about what you're showing us. And what we can do is, while that's happening, we'll then take a pause to talk about the cheese, and then come back to some of the video content, if that sounds good. So.
Yeah.
So awesome. So do you want to preface the Casatica video?
Well, yeah, let me get my little hat on here.
Oh, yeah. What's
I've
up?
got the cheese production hat,
Yeah,
and John has the howdy doody. Let me go out in an all hat. This is Quattro
Right.
Portoni. I'm super proud to present this cheese, Casatica, and the Quattro Portoni family because they are truly visionaries. All of us have eaten mozzarella di bufala for years and years and centuries, and nobody ever made aged buffalo milk cheese. And quite frankly, I've never been a fan of mozzarella di bufala, but the cheeses that this family makes, and it's a family, Bruno and Alfio, which we'll get to see, it's just super inspiring because each cheese is better than the other one. And talk about, just that synergy. I feel fortunate. I have like 7 families in my life, and this is one of them. Bruno and Alfio and the girls and his wife Elena have just come together to have a sustainable farm with 950 buffalo, making traditional yet modern cheeses, all from this buffalo milk, which is a very difficult milk to work with, I have to say. And it's number 1 on our tasting because buffalo milk is our highest butterfat milk ever. So this is a very voluptuous cheese, but it's a mild cheese. It's not tangy like you would have a mozzarella di bufala, so it's just very sweet. So it's a perfect entry to all of the other cheeses that we're going to taste.
Right. And for the folks that that moved their cheese off their plate, it's going to be the white, very soft cheese with the sort of white, slightly tinged rind on it, if you can see. It's
Bloomy
magnificent.
rind. And do you eat it or do you not eat it?
You want to knock that out of the park now?
I do.
Yeah. Do you have any funny puns that you want to share, or just go after it?
No, I just, it brings me back when, like, going back to the famous Steve Jenkins when he first came out on his book, The Cheese Primer, which dates me. He was so opinionated in that book about whether, do you eat rinds or you're not? And I'm just like, it's whatever you like. So the thing is, you should try it. I say, try the center of the cheese, try the rind, try them together. And if there's mold on the rind and you like that flavor, then you'll probably like eating the rind with the cheese. If you're not someone who likes the taste of mold, then you probably don't like it. But it's up to you to make that decision. And nobody should tell you that you should or you shouldn't. Some of it's actually logic. So if you have manchego and it's got that plastic rind on it and you try and bite it and it kind of sticks the roof of your mouth and that hurts, that might be a clue that that's not the perfect rind to eat. But other than that, I think it's fairly common sense. And, chefs usually love rinds because they love that's where the salt gathers. I mean, if you think about what does a rind do, John? A rind is there to protect the cheese. So it is the part that you add the salt to, whether it's brined or dry. It's the part that we touch. So it has certain functions. It protects the cheese. It makes the cheese look beautiful, but it's also the part that if anyone like touches it, that more things can happen to it. So there's definitely a, either you do or you don't, but I'm sure you're completely different than what I think.
Yeah, no, we say the same thing. If you like it, eat the rest of it. If you don't like it, stop. But you should always try it. I think it's worth the experience.
You should.
And so I'm going to go ahead and, as Michelle said, eat from the inside out. It's a mold ripened cheese, so that mold is going to be the strongest flavor. So try it from the inside, work your way out. And Michelle, if you want to turn off your camera, I'm going to share the video and then you can narrate over it.
Okay. Three, two, one. Okay. But that was the family going back there. That was Bruno and Elena and Roberta and Michele. That's Michele with the short hair. She's a doctor. Roberta just joined the company. Bruno handles all of the sales and the cheese making area. Elena's his wife and she helps him at trade shows. And this is in their tasting room. And we'll meet Alfio further ahead. Oh. So we can keep going. These are some of the 950 buffalo. This is in a very old farmhouse. This is the sustainable place. So each of these animals Now, you would think that buffalo are scary, but they are scaredy cats. They're super sweet. They're very timid. If you make a lot of noise, you will scare them to death and they'll go running. But otherwise, they will kiss you like your dog kisses you. These animals, the buffalo milk is much harder to handle to make cheese than cow's milk is. You have more of a yield, but it's denser. Look, see, there you have them just eating right out of my hand. They're so, so sweet. And then have a look at this. This is for animal welfare. So when the animals are hot or they're itchy, they can just go and get their own very little back scratch. And this is quite fun. Buffalo are organized that the ones that are milking are kept separate than the ones that are giving birth, which are separate from the men. And they usually weed out and are very, very specific in the way that they're going to breed the animals to get the highest quality milk possible. For those of you who, the general process of making cheese is you're going to take milk, you need to transform it into something solid. So you're going to add something to it that's going to convert it, and that's rennet. In this case, we're using enzymes because this is an enzymatic cheese. And when you talk cheese making, you can do it by lowering the pH. You can do it by adding enzymes and rennet to it. And those are the two main ways that you'll look at coagulating or forming that. So here, the milk will get heated, and then they'll add the rennet to there, and then they'll start to stir it, and then they will cut the curd and form the curd, and then you have to drain the curds. Like this whole thing from our nursery rhymes were very, very interesting because they do a whole lot more than we ever thought about it. You know, Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet eating her curds and whey. So here's where the curds are being made, and then the whey has to drain out as fast as possible, especially in young, soft, sweet cheeses, because keeping the whey in contact for too long will make the cheese more bitter. So here, they're pouring out the curd into the molds. These particular molds are plastic and they're rectangular. And then we'll see the different processes here. If you pay attention, the color is actually like a greenish or translucent, and that's because it's buffalo milk. Goat's milk is whiter, and sheep's milk is yellower, and cow's milk is more golden. This is kind of what the cheese looks like when we're flipping it in the mold. The mold has these markings in it that help to drain the liquid out of it, and then also give it a cool shape for what it's coming here.
That is the casata de bufala that you're seeing made right there. They filmed this for us just for this tasting, which is amazing.
This is a really cool, now this is brand new for them, okay? This is to save a lot of labor where they would have to individually flip every cheese several times a day, couple hours, wait, keep flipping the cheese to push the whey out. So now they've created this machine which can just flip the whole pallet. It's the coolest thing. So that has just saved them 20 minutes or more. So they'll keep flipping it, and then they'll flip it again later, but they don't have to do there's like, I don't know, 50, 60 cheeses in there that they would have had to do one by one. So super fun. Let's see where it's going next. Then usually the next process will be to do a brine. So the cheese, this is already with the mold growing on it. Now to get this mold, they put some of the Penicillium candidum in the mixture with the milk, and then it'll also be in the aging room a little bit in there too. If you're seeing some of the cat hair, we call it, some of the darker molds to just get wiped down. Sometimes with the mingling of cheeses that happens, and in a perfect world we wouldn't have that happen either. Here we have Bruno and Alfio together. So Alfio takes care of the animals. He does the animal husbandry. I'm happy to see him there without any casts or anything, because very often one of the animals will get scared, and you know, just a sudden move from a buffalo that weighs 650 kilos, you know, could break your arm or can do lots of other things to you. So they don't mean to, they just get freaked out. Great people to work with and amazing cheeses. Hi. They're actually having a pretty rough time right now, I have to say. John, we can't hear you though, or I can't hear you.
Oh yeah, I put myself on mute so you wouldn't hear me eating so much. So this is our daughter
Yay!
petting one of those water buffalo a couple years ago when we got to go visit. And I have to show that picture. It just makes me so happy. And then
Now,
here
did you see that machine when you were there? That's new, right?
it's
Did you?
new. It was 2017 when we went. Oh, here's a great picture. I'm inside that facility. It's super cool. And it just that the family, they're in our prayers because they were hit hard by COVID in many ways. And so the more we can support them, the less they have to think about their cheese going bad, and they can
They're
focus on
right
their.
in the eye of the storm. They're located in Colonio Serio, and that is right next to, that's in Bergamo, which is near like Oro Serio, the low-cost airport, which is why I think that Lombardy is in such bad shape because of all the flights there. And so Bruno is just constantly worried about the welfare of his animals, about the family, since his daughter's, she's a doctor and she's on the front lines all the time. And his son-in-law is an anesthesiologist also on the front lines. It's just a lot of stress going on there, and there's a lot of death in that region. So I try and think about him and celebrate him. And actually, I have listed that I'm going to call them tomorrow. I just want to see how they're doing.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing. And if you've been to most of any of our classes, you've probably had Quadrello de Bufala before, and that's them as well. It's one of the cheeses Kendall and I knew we would be carrying in the shop before we opened. It's just special.
And
It's just
Casatica is actually the name of one of the 4 entryways to the town. Did you go through their town?
very.
There's a door. One of them is called Moringhello. One of them is Casatica. One is Porto Roca, which is why I wanted to make a cheese that sounded like that. And then the 4th door, we're waiting for a new cheese. It's called
Oh,
Antignano, and I'll share with you a secret because the name of the cheese I want to give it is Gnano. There's like every language loves to have like nicknames and shorten everything, like we all have it, Pepe instead of whatever, and Francisco in Spanish and everything. So I want to call the cheese Gnano.
yeah,
So
perfect. I can't wait. I love it. And if anybody can do it, you can do it. I don't know how many products you've introduced to the United States. I'm sure it's the number is high. We'll say that. So
we're
I hope,
always working at it.
the olives that were paired with it, these are Carmona. They're Spanish, and it's a mix of different sizes. Each one has a pit, so you can try them all together. Taste different. It has a different experience with the cheese depending on the ripeness of it and the color. And so super good. Somebody just asked a question. What does that mean? Can you clarify so I can answer that question a little bit better for you? I would like to make sure you get answered. Now I'm choking on an almond.
Oh, Gnano. It's Antignano is the name of the 4th arch entryway to Bruno and Alfio's hometown. And so I was just like lopping off the first part because when I think of names, you want to be able to pronounce it. So if I named a cheese Antignano and it's spelled Antignano, you'll never come back for that cheese because you're not going to be able to pronounce it, probably, unless you're really good with languages. So I try and make it easier.
All right, so let's dive into number 2. The second cheese that we're tasting tonight is from Croatia. Do you want to go ahead and talk about it briefly, set it up, and then tell me when
No,
to
I want
turn
to
the
go.
video on?
I'll see y'all later. I want to go to Croatia. Sorry, I keep posting from there. And this was pretty funny because I realized I have files going back to 2005 when I first fell in love with Croatia. And it took me 7 years to bring Paški sir, which is the most famous cheese from Croatia. It's a 1-year-old sheep's milk cheese from little midget sheep that I call and talk about. And we'll see them because they're more fun to look at than the cows that aren't on the island. But the island of Pag only has sheep. And you know, between the fear of working with a foreigner because they never sold this cheese outside of their town, outside of their country. There was a language barrier. It took forever. And so I realized I had like all of this footage, mainly in pictures. So yesterday I was writing one of the owners and I'm like, Martina, I need your help. It's like, can you just kind of, it's right now is prime time for making cheese. So I was like, can you just like make me a quick video? And then she'd make one and send one to me. I was like, yeah, but I kind of am missing this. Can you go and get this part? And so it was, we were kind of working together to just get you the facets that I was missing. And it was really fun. And she asked if she could call in. So I actually have no idea. She might
Oh,
have.
maybe she's done. That would be awesome. So the cheese that we're eating has a very dry rind on the outside. It's in a triangle shape, pretty much like all the others.
But it's
Let
going
me
to be
see.
more golden than the Dama. The Dama's whiter, yellow to whiter, because this has
Golden.
all that cow's milk.
It does not have a pattern on the rind. If that should help you if you've moved the cheeses around. It's very golden
Well,
rind.
what does the Dama one look like? So we can just show them two together.
The Dama will be like this and
Much
have
whiter. Yeah, much whiter,
hash.
and the Manchego zigzag.
So awesome. All right. And then we're pairing this with Booze Time Cherry. So I'm going to hop over and turn on the video so that we
All right,
can,
I'll
if you
turn
want to turn the camera off.
Yes.
All right. Let me share my screen. Get this going. All right.
So we're going to, that's Martina. Her father started this. Her father was Ante, and it was two men named Ante who started this over 70 years ago. This is Ante here, and we're overlooking Pod Island. And one of the things I always have really amazing sunsets. So this is about 3 hours from Zagreb. It's an island, but there actually is a way to take a bridge and go over a bridge to get here. This is a place that's very lunar looking, as you can see. There's not a lot of green. This is as you go over the bridge when you first come in, and it's one of my favorite things to do. The island of Pag is famous for lace, so I wanted you to see that this is still very much a part of what they do. And the island makes me think of Sardinia a lot, because as you drive around or walk around the streets, they're always trying to sell, like, just everybody sells cheese, and it says Pashkisir, so cheese made from Pag's milk. These are the famous Pag sheep. So these are the midget sheep I was telling you about. Now the Dalmatinets cheese is 90% cow's milk and 10% sheep's milk. So there are no cows on Pag because they would die in 2 seconds of starvation because there's no grass. So they bring the milk from outside of the island for this. Whereas the DOP, the denomination of Arshim Pashkisir, all the milk has to come from the island. One of the things I thought's really cool is when they're, after they poured the curd and they're putting the plaques on here, this reminds me very much of what we'll see later in the production of our Pecorino Romano. So where they're kind of pressing the curd to then before they go to cut it. And it's not, I haven't seen it that often in all of my different producers in the countries that I go to. So I thought this was really cool. It's still very manual. And what they're doing here is by the weight, this is just moving around the curds here as well before they put down those plaques. And the idea is to press the curd and to help push the whey out. In the Kasatika, what you saw is a soft cheese. So when you separate the curds from the whey and you cut the curd is very large. When you go to make a cheese that's more aged, like Dalmatinets, you're going to cut the size of the curd smaller. So instead of like the size of a chickpea, you're going to have the grain of a rice as you're getting the soft curd. Now, what you see behind here is they had that machine that kind of like a guillotine, which kind of cuts it into blocks. And these blocks, they're going to take and then put them in the molds. And everybody has molds that are a little bit different. This has like a little screen on them as we'll keep going. So here you'll get to see the molding where they're pushing it into a round mold. They are, then they have like this little screen, which is very different from some other places that we'll see as well. So they put this, and eventually after they're putting all the cheese in the mold, we're going to see it being pressed. Cheese is always a very manual process. There's a lot of different steps to it, and all of them are very important. So here we see again where they've cut it. You see some of the whey still. The whey drains from underneath, and then it usually goes into a tank. And often it gets carted off and fed to the animals for what it's there. You can kind of see in the back some of what the presses look like. And this next step, oh, we went in here first, okay. Before we'll go back and see the pressings elsewhere too, but this is what we call brining. So the cheeses get slotted onto here, and then it gets lowered on this pulley into this water that has a very high density of salt. And this is a relatively new way of brining. So it allows the cheese to sit in there and to evenly get coated with the salt bath. And what that does is set the rind. And that is making it so you have to set the rind before you age the cheese. And because that rind is what's going to protect it, it's where the mold's going to grow. I guess they cut the press part. I missed that. Here is the aging room where you see a lot of them. There's actually signs that are marked with forever cheese, because I have to choose our cheese a year in advance for the Pashkisir, and for the Dalmatinas, I have to work with them closely on the program so that we have enough cheese for us, availability. The guys we saw before were shepherds, so when they have nothing else to do and they need some other stuff done, they just lend a hand and they come in and they help clean cheese. So this is going to be a cheese that you get a lot of grassiness to it. It's got a lot of flavor that comes into it. It's got sweet with some savory, some little caramel that goes with it. It's just a very easy cheese to enjoy. It's tasting
delicious tonight. It is so good, Michele. It tasted delicious.
I'm a little jealous that I don't have this all with you, you know.
I'll just mail some back to you. It's wonderful. All right, so we got 20 minutes left and 4 more delicious cheeses. Do you want to pop on and do a quick setup for the Parmigiano?
Parmigiano. I will say not all Parmigiano Reggiano is created equal, okay? It's just not. The name Parmigiano Reggiano, or the cheese I should say, is a protected denomination of origin. We call it either DOP in Italian, Denominazione di Origine Protetta, or PDO, protected denomination of origin. So to have Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, it means it gets to 12 months of its life, has the consortium, the Consorzio di Parmigiano Reggiano have to come in, they take a little hammer and they tap, 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 and they test it for soundness to make sure it's fine. If it's fine, they let it stay marked Parmigiano Reggiano, and then it can go on from there to age, depending what people want, whether it will be 18, whether it will be 22, 24 months. My company brings in only minimum 24-month cheese and marked export. What export is a secondary control that when it's minimum 18 months, the consortium comes back out, you pay them, and they test each wheel again. And then they cut open and they taste some of the wheels as well before fire branding it with export. And we are the company who imports more of this highest quality cheese than anyone else in the world. Most people don't feel that they want to go that extra step. They don't, we're completely obsessed with bringing as good as cheese as can possibly made here. And we work and learn about all of our different producers with them. And they're smaller. We try and work with the smaller farm and producers because we don't want it to be all eaten up into a larger conglomeration. We want those small people to have a chance and to keep having that wonderful cheese.
Outstanding. We had a quick question about somebody just asking for if your inability to travel is impacting the outlook for cheeses since you bring so many people in. So many different producers.
I don't want to think about all the trips I've canceled. We are so fortunate that our 200 producers, every single one of them, despite this horrible pandemic, have all gone to work every day, have all been producing, because you know what? they have a responsibility to the farmer and to the animal. The animals don't get to say we get to stay home, you know, for COVID. They give milk no matter what. So that milk has to be made into cheese. Now, the only problem is that we're not able to bring as much as we normally do because of the shutdowns. And we've had to modify our orders, which has been really heart-wrenching to us because we know how important it is for us to support our producers. And they know we do. I mean, one of the first things I sent them a letter just reminding them that Forever Cheese wouldn't be anybody without them. That every time we talk about a cheese, we talk about them, that we celebrate them, and that we are so fortunate and we feel so amazed that they're continuing to go to work in the adversity. I mean, I know that some of my producers were scared stiff. They were scared stiff, but they knew that they needed to, they had a responsibility to the animal, to the farmer, and to their customer. And so I salute them 1,000 million times. But as for cheeses in general, I have so many new things that will still happen that honestly, if I didn't go anywhere for a few months, things wouldn't change it. But I don't want anyone to know because I want to get over there as soon as possible.
Yes, it's travels in your blood. Well, why don't we dive into the Parmigiano? I'll start the video. You want to turn your camera off and let's start eating. And it's paired with a 18-year balsamic vinegar, which is
Ooh.
outstanding. So it's
It
super
is,
delicious.
but please make sure that you just taste the cheese on its own before the pairing, because you want to get all those nuances, all that beautiful sweetness to it, and then try it with the pairing too, for sure. But I wanted to make sure you got a little bit of a view of like how flat it is in Emilia-Romagna. Parmigiano Reggiano can only be made in the area of Emilia-Romagna. So it can be from Parma, it can be from Reggio, it can be from Bologna, it can be from Mantova and Modena. There are hills, and cheeses that come made on the hills are considered special and have, especially in the hills of Parma. And that's why they created a new designation also for mountain cheese. When you get more up into the altitudes, it's really nice and fresh and great air. As part of the Parmigiano, people have to feed their animals what is grown in their region. That is very, very important. So they can't just buy feed from anywhere. That is checked and controlled by the consortium. These are the copper vats. Yes.
Yeah, I stopped the video because what's really cool about this is when the first time I got to see a parm vat, how it goes down deep about 9 feet. And so you only
really
see
deep,
top, like 3 to 4 feet of the whole vat is sticking out of the ground. It's like an iceberg. It's amazing. And so this doesn't necessarily give you perspective, but think of it as like 8 to 9 feet deep.
Yeah, so I was going to say that if I fell in there, I don't know how I'd ever get out. Well, holding the cheese, the lira. I don't even know how to call. I'm going to have the problem that I can't say a lot of this in English. I don't know the names in English for a lot of the tools. But anyway, with Parmigiano, it's very important to use morning milk, evening milk and morning milk. So the evening milk stays out overnight and the cream comes to the top. And so you skim that off. So you partially skimmed and that goes in the bottom of the vat. And then the morning milk goes straight in as whole milk. Part of the special part of this process is something called siero inesto. So you take the whey left over from yet the day before's Parmigiano, and you need to add that in the production of the cheese for it to turn out and be the proper recipe to be Parmigiano Reggiano. Parmigiano Reggiano is always raw milk, so it's never pasteurized. What we're seeing now is kind of the breaking of the curd that's going in here.
Michelle, somebody asked what cheese we're eating. They moved. This is gonna look like a little rock, it's dry, it's dense, and when you you have to like use a lot of pressure to break it apart. And it's quite golden. This is cow's milk.
Yes. So here we get to see, and yeah, this was another great video that I called one of my producers and said, would you please make this for me? Because I had a lot of parts of it, but I didn't have it all together that you could see in just a short period of time. So this is reheating the milk. there's a lot of different phases that go into the cheese, where you first heat it up, and then where you're waiting for it to form and be like pudding-like, and then where you're cutting the curd, and then you have to heat it up a bit more. And as the mass is going to do it, it's going to like form, you know, this kind of like a solid block area that then is going to get put into cheesecloths, and you're going to see this right now. So the curd has fallen to the bottom, and those are going. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's a good look at how you only see 2 to 3 feet of the actual vat. You could see it there first.
Exactly. Now what they're doing here is they're going to use this wooden pole to like help pull up this very, very heavy curd. And those are the cheesecloths on the side. So it is quite the art to like maneuver this ball of cheese into this big cheesecloth. And then this whole big piece is going to eventually get cut into two, and each vat always makes 2 wheels of cheese at a time. So there's always like a twin. So here is one here, and now see he's cutting it. And then it'll hang out for a second, and then they're going to slip another cheesecloth in there so that they separate them and have 2 of them. And all of this was such a manual process. And in the now newer times, you have some of them that lift up the cheese with a pulley, but if not, you just need to have brute strength to lift all of these up. Because when these are finished aging, they could be as big as 90 pounds. So believe me, as it weighs a lot as that fresh piece there. Each cheesemaker.
It weighs way more than 90 pounds because it has so much water still in it at this point. And so these guys are just all muscle.
And you should see some of them it belies it. They're like just tall and thin. There's a lot of Africans and Ethiopians who are in this region who are helping to make the cheese. It's always very hard because there's not a lot of people who still want to make cheese that are from the area. So there's a lot of people from Eastern Europe as well. But this is such an art. Look at that. So that's actually being pulled on pulleys, but there's the guys who still have to carry them on racks and pick them up. Now they're coming into, this is a mold that's going to help form the shape of what it is. There's 2 different ones. First you get the plastic mold, and then it's going to go into an aluminum mold. And I hope we're going to see here where, I don't remember if in this one we get to see that the plaque where it says Parmigiano that'll go on the sides. But look at that baby. Looks like a big oversized piece of bread. And see there's a very special way to fold it and to turn it. And they're going to keep turning these wheels like at least 3 times in the afternoon before it gets into this level. They have to turn it and put a weight on the top of it so that it helps push out the whey. We're always talking about pushing and separating the curds from the whey. And then this is the metal mold that's going to give Parmigiano like the dots that you see on it, and it's going to make the form, the proper form that we see that it's kind of a little bit elongated to get it there. And it's still aged on the wood.
Yeah, and the customer asked what happens with the whey. Oftentimes in Parmigiano production, it goes to feed the pigs. It
does go to feed the pigs, yes.
So, which is pretty amazing. So you got to see there the aging, and Parmigiano is a very important product in this world for so many things, so many reasons. And oftentimes they'll move from the production facility to a more of an aging room. Do you know how many wheels they're aging at a given time, Michelle?
It depends. I mean, it just depends on where you are, because a lot of the overall, the producer themselves doesn't have that much space because it's also very expensive. So because it's so expensive, oftentimes they prefer to just have, you know, X, and then they sell it off to an ager, and that ager is going to be the one who will finish the production of the cheese, because then the burden's on them and not on the cheesemaker.
It makes sense. All right, so we've got 3 more, y'all, that it looks like we are going to go over a few minutes just because we have such great content from these cheesemakers. If that's the case, we are recording this video, and you can email me and I can get that to you if you have an important meeting that you have to get to, or another activity, or if your couch is calling and you need to get back on your couch. But I will have that. We want to be sensitive to those folks that need to get off. So just go ahead and you can email me at john@antonellischeese.com and I can get you that video. But now we're on to La Dama Sagrada, which is
I'm gonna bring my, I forgot to bring my Manchego lamp for you guys all here. I didn't turn my light on, so I didn't realize how dark I would be.
That's so cool. I love that. And y'all can see that the outside of your cheese should have that Manchego, that sort of,
just like this.
just like the light that's going, which is awesome. And so I'm gonna get the video going, Michelle, if you wanna start chatting about La Dama. And
well, yeah, because the zigzag rind that you have is very iconic, and it's in La Mancha. This is where this this rind came from, because it really represents the type of grass that grew there, the esparto grass. So although when you talk Manchego, Manchego is a sheep's milk cheese, and today we're tasting La Dama Sagrada, the Sacred Dame, which is an unpasteurized goat's milk cheese. Since it's made in that area, it has the zigzag rind as well. It's also a favorite for cheesemakers because it really preserves the cheese inside. And it's such a cool rind. I love to look at it. And I go and I look, there's all different patterns of this on different Manchegos, on Dama and everything else. You can actually see the cheeses, even though they all have zigzags, a lot of those zigzags change. So this is Fatima. Fatima is one of our female cheese producers. There really aren't that many in Europe. It was a man's world. But Fatima grew up on a farm, and her parents made cheese, and she paid attention and she loved it. So she had been apprenticing and learning, and then the opportunity came for her to become the head cheesemaker. And in total, she's been making cheese for 24 years, and the last 10 of them at this place where they're making this 6-month aged raw cheese just for me. There's not enough milk in their herd for them to make it for other people, so they're just making it for forever cheese. I did name the cheese the Sacred Dame, and it's named after a song from one of my favorite Spanish bands, El Último de la Fila. And sometimes a lot of times things don't have names in the countries I come with. They just have descriptors. They'll call it firm goat cheese. And I'll be like, well, that'll get far in our country. So I'll just look for something to call it. And in this case, we called it the Dama Sagrada. So this is a 6-month aged cheese, like I told you. These are some photos going here in La Mancha. And this is Fatima at work in showing some of the cheeses. This here is a press. It's very similar to the one I wanted to show you in Croatia. So after they pour the curd and it puts in the mold, it gets in the press for several hours. I know, I was like, okay.
Not what we wanted to do there. Give me a second. We have La Dama Sagrada issues, y'all. I'll get it going.
No worries. Fatima's patient.
I wanted to go back and pause on that so everybody could see it, and then I clicked the wrong button. So there's that press.
There's the press. So there's the lid that goes on top, and then they go sideways. There's all different, there are vertical presses. This is a horizontal press. So that'll stay there for a couple of hours, and then the mold will come out, and then the cheese will go into a brine, and then it'll go into an aging room. So we'll just go through some of it here. There's some of the curd as it's fresh, and then the cheesecloth like we saw before. This is one of their, this is a co-op. So these are a lot of there's different members who bring the milk to then work the cheese. And one of the members of the co-op is this goat herder. So he was talking about all the feed coming from his farm, from the area, and how well he takes care of his animals. And these are Murciana goats, M-U-R-C-I-A-N-A. I love the Murciana goat. It produces a lot of milk, but the milk is rich in fat and protein, so the cheese is sweeter. It's not as goaty and animally as other breeds. Like when I first started in this industry, I hated goat cheese because most of it tasted like wood chips, or it tasted like you were licking the underbelly of a goat. And when I first tasted, my first cheese that I liked that was goat was the Drunken Goat, and that came from Morthiana goat's milk. So I urge anybody who has been afraid of goat in the past, if you find a cheese that's made with Morthiana goat's milk, it's always going to be sweeter. Here we get to see them being milked. They produce 2.5 to 3 liters of milk a day, and they are milked twice a day. This is also within the same farm where they get milked, and then it's right around the corner pretty much from the cheese plant. And this cheese producer is 20 minutes from the Corcuera plant where we first saw at the beginning, where they were doing that wonderful let's all kick COVID, and taking great care. It's quite fun to try and milk these animals. I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but
The cheese is great, tasting great tonight, Michelle. It's got a hint of good acidity. I'm tasting like a little hint of the farm on it, which is really pleasant tonight. When I paired it with the guava paste that we're tasting it with, and so it's spectacular. Good acidity on the side of the palate, but it's
how
really
are the proteins? Do you have any milk proteins in there?
a little crunchy bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tyrosine?
it's got a good decadence to it.
Excellent. Yeah, it should be. I just love the flavor profile there because it's just not an assertive cheese. Just has lots of good flavor to it. And it's hard to find really good unpasteurized goat cheese. I'm always looking for more. So it's very, very hard. So I feel so fortunate that I met this company and that they're willing to do it just for us. And I was giving away my bandanas the last time I went to visit them. So I thought it was really cool that they remembered to put that in the video. This is all the cheese that's aging. It's not all mine here. Mine is mixed with other people's as well. But hi, Fatima. Be safe.
Mark and Becky asked what to rename the goat variety for them.
Murciana, Murciana. Or in Spain, we always have the lith, so Murciana. I can type it in too.
I just typed it for you. Awesome. All right, that's fantastic. And so that is the chimes on a nearby church are playing for us. So it is 7 o'clock. If you do have to get off, just remember to email me at John@Antonelli's Cheese. But we have 2 more beautiful cheeses to go with. The next up, Michelle, is Mufato, which is our blue.
All right.
I haven't had this cheese in over a year. We ordered it and we brought it in for this, and I am just beside myself with excitement. So I'm going to go ahead.
You're going to have to tell me more about it because I haven't had Mufato for a really long time because it's a very small production.
Yeah.
So is it nice and creamy?
It is. It's got a nice fudgy texture.
Fudgy texture. Lots of blue veins?
Yes, I would say medium on my piece.
Medium, okay. And then can you get hints of the
nice
chamomile and some of those other cool herbs that are on there?
Yeah, my piece has that, and they're nice and packed. So it's got a nice sort of rind to it. So what we're
I've given up trying to memorize all the herbs that Sergio uses because, you know, as soon as I do, he decides to put something different on. And it's very much, you know, what we're going to see, everyone, is Sergio Moro, who is one of these inner core of producers and agers that are disciples of this really wonderful man, Giorgio Nesti, who I used to work with. And he picked the best of the best in Italy. He always had the greatest eye. And I met Sergio years and years ago when he was still using grapes from his vines and aging cheese in his garage till, you know, growing up and really having more of a space. This is above he has a retail shop in Oderzo in the Veneto region of Italy, about 45 minutes from Venice. And then upstairs from his beautiful cheese shop, he sells the wines. And they do some of the best displays ever. And he does all of our ubriaco or drunk cheeses. The one up here is Pure Ghiaccio. Sottocenere. We're going to see a little about the production of Sottocenere because this is one of our first cult cheeses. It's
And
a
if you,
cow's milk cheese with black truffles that has cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, clove, fennel, and licorice on the rind. Sorry.
yeah, and we sell, many of you have had this in our shop before. If you, this is our signature truffle cheese. Somebody's asking for the village again, name of the village.
Oderzo, Oderzo. And I recommend when this all passes to visit there. It's like a tiny version of Venice. It has canals. It has beautiful ruins. It's a very wealthy, beautiful little place. I love this town. It's very special, not to mention the special people. I mean, I can't tell you, I met Sergio in 1996. So we have a picture of him you'll see after. He's not quite as gray as this one before. It goes way back to another tasting we did with him. Look at that. He's over here, the second from the left. And that's some of the cows that are used to make his cheese. Now, Sergio isn't a cheesemaker per se. Sergio works with cheesemakers to make a base of a cheese that he wants, and then he does the aging. This is the making of the sottocenere cheese. And what's so fun with this is when you see them pick it up, it kind of reminds me of Parmigiano. And they still use copper vats to make the cheese. If you look past that in the back, that's an old press. And they still use this to press the wheels. This is what the curd looks like when it comes out of the press. And they're still forming it. And here he is as we're going the reverse, so filling up some of the curds into the molds. And then this goes on top of a lot of the plastic molds are underneath, and then they use the metal on top, and then they fill the molds, and then they pull it away. Here we have the like the base for a lot of the cheeses that he uses when it's there, and then he will go and do something special with it if it's not sottocenere or something else. But the next part was done especially for you guys now. The herb mixture to make the mufatto cheese. So we're just going to see the affinage parts. Chamomile, which is what I remembered. And Sergio uses these barrels, and they steep the cheeses inside. They cover them in the herbs. Then they close the barrel so that the cheese re-ferments and takes on all these wonderful aromas. And it stays there for, it varies on the cheese, how long it'll be there, because sottocenere goes into the ashes as well. But the mufatto sits in there and glorifies in all of this wonderful herb mixture, so that it will be part of, you know, the experience when you open up and try it. And then oftentimes they'll take it out and then wash it once again and do that like you're seeing, and then they'll reclose it again. This cheese is aged 90 to 100 days, so it's not in there for that long. When they say aging, that means that it stays in the barrel, but the cheese has already been aged for 2 months before it goes into the barrels. They did this to Enya, but we didn't want to have any music on there.
A little background music. Then we couldn't hear your voice.
No, you couldn't do it because they didn't ask for the copyright.
That's true.
But when I heard it the first time, it was good. So this is our super special cheese, very limited production. I'm so excited that you're getting to taste it today. And really, Sergio has just a great vision on all the different things that they've been doing. And look at that, since 1930. And he learned from his father. So he's, and his son's working with him now, Giovanni.
That was amazing. That cheese tasted spectacular. And as you got closer to the rind, you experienced a bit more of that mint chamomile sort of flavor profile. I love that. We have the Parmigiano line in our warehouse that you sent us. Do you happen to know at what age it gets pierced? Is it pierced within the first 3 or 4 days of production?
Yes, it is. So when they make it, and right away they pierce it a couple weeks after that, and then it ages for the couple months, and then it goes into the mixture, and then it comes out and they package it and they send it to me or their store.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we get 1 to 3 wheels a year of this stuff. And I know it's in our Cheese of the Month Club package next month. We're spotlighting it again, but I just love that cheese. I love the experience. Sometimes when you get it and it's fermented a little bit more, you get almost a sassafras note, like almost like a root beer note to it, which is all often fun. Or it just like it's amazing. It takes on different personalities, and that's what I think is so special about producers that are like Sergio, that they're doing things that are creative and they're creating these unique flavors and experiences. And so it's so good. It tasted
The
amazing
base
tonight.
for it, though, that it has to be good cheese. So there's a lot of people who just do, you know, a lot of creative things, let's say. But what I love about Sergio is the base of the cheese is good cheese. Like Forever Cheese, we don't want to bring something for if it's gimmicky. You know, I'm more often not saying no, no, thank you, because it has to be good cheese. And then whatever they do with it, if they finish it, can make it even better and more interesting, that's great. But we're not looking for something that's just thrown on there to cover up the flaws of the basic part, which is cheese. I mean, we're called Forever Cheese because the quality of that cheese, the nucleus has to be amazing.
It is so good. All right, so our last one, the Fulvi. Somebody commented we never put blue cheese before anything else, and so somebody commented, wait, blue cheese before pecorino? So take it away, Maestro. Let us know, and then tell me when you want me to start the video. I'll have it ready.
Okay. 2 or 3 things to say. It's always a challenge to decide whether you want to do blue first or the pecorino romano first, but I almost always leave the fulvi for last because, well, the paste of the blue is lighter than what that pecorino romano will be. And, you know, I guess I could do either. I'm very partial to our pecorino romano. This is the cheese that allowed us to make 20 years, surpass 20 years in business. So, you know, I always want to leave that in your minds as something, because for us, this is the key to our livelihood. And so I like it. There's something I just want to say quickly before we do fulvi, and just when you guys are putting together cheese plates, there's so many different ways you can do it. A lot of times people think, okay, I have to do it by country, so I'll do Italy, Spain, Portugal, Croatia, or France, or something like that. But you can do it by milk type. You can do all sheep's milk, and then there'll be all different textures, or it could be sheep from all different countries, or it could be, you know, kind of like you do a vertical tasting in wine. So you do the same type of cheese, different ages, or you could do it by, I don't know, you can just change it all different ways. It doesn't have to be just one way, you know? So I like to do like vertical sheep, where I just do 7 different textures of sheep cheeses and different things like that. But I always like to mix it up. And I never want to like pigeonhole it so that you should always think that it has to be that way. Or of course by animal type, you know, cow, goat, sheep, buffalo. So there's just a lot of fun ways that you can do with it, and try and think outside the box. Pick everything. We do ubriaco cheeses, so pick 5 different soak cheeses, you know, a beer soak, a wine soak, an herb on the top of it, something like that. So you can just play, have fun. The bottom line is to have fun and eat lots of cheese.
That's right. And Michelle, we paired this along the way, you can mention, with Speck from the Alto Adige.
Which I only made last year for my first time to go see it. It was like a little wonderland of meats, with them flipping it over and going on. So a very nice smoked pork product from the Alto Adige region. But I'm probably going to use it all on full because I know we've run over.
All right, here we go.
So this is fulvi pecorino romano. It's one of the very, 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 very last pecorino romano cheeses from the countryside of Rome. Most cheeses now that are pecorino romano cheeses are made in Sardinia. This is with the family. So there's Luigi and Emiliano, and I work with Emiliano's brother. The fulvi pecorino romano has a brown rind on the outside. Let's stop it here for a sec. Has a brown rind because that is typical in the Roman area. They used to preserve their cheese in mud. So that's why there's a brown rind on the outside. And of course, it's more of a food paint today because, you know, I think the government would get a little upset if we started to bring cheese in that had mud on the rind. But I wanted to point out this sagra, the pecorino romano, because this is something that I went to this past year, and I had been hearing about it for 25 years, and I'd never experienced it until now. And basically, in May, they chunk up pecorino cheese and they serve it with fava beans. And they have a whole festival for it in the town of Nepi, which is about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Rome. So I got to go, and that was really fun. That's where you saw the big blow up of fulvi. But it's very typical to pair fava beans and pecorino cheese, especially young pecorino romano. So I thought I would just share some of that culture with you because it was super fun. Okay, now we get to go see the sheep. They're the fava beans. Let's come in here. This is the town of Nepi, so it's about 15 minutes or less from our cheese plant, which is on the Via Cassia from Rome to Florence. The sheep are very different. These are Soprafesana and Sicilian sheep. So most pecorino romano is now made in Sardinia from the Sardinian sheep, which has a lot of milk and doesn't have the richness in fat and protein that our cheese has. The fulvi pecorino romano is it's not skim milk. So you have, if you look at the piece of cheese, if you haven't finished eating it yet, it is much yellower than other pecorino romano, which is usually bone white. Look, there's a little baby, and I saw a lamb being born on this day. It was crazy. This was done, we went to film a PBS series called The Original Fare, and we got some really great footage coming out of it. We just saw the baby, it was so great. So these sheep are very important to us because they make a lot of the difference in our cheese because it's not as hard, not as dry, and not as salty as other pecorino romano cheeses. And there's me. You see that black sheep? That was me there. Here's another view of some of the sheep. They kept running away from us, but they're such a different breed. If you could remember back to the Croatian sheep with their heads and everything here. Here we are inside the fulvi plant, and we are pouring the curd. These guys have been with us. My partner's family own this plant, and he has all of his cousins working here. He's now pulling the curd away so that he can prepare it for pressing it. And we're going to see a very similar pressing like we did in the Croatian cheese plant. You see how thick the milk and the curd is coming? So it's thick. You've got a draining down. The whey is coming out. The curd is coming up. The curd was smaller than if you could remember back to the Satica. Here is cutting of the curd. You see how dense that is? That's such a different texture than what was done for the Croatian cheese. And each of these weighs 100, at least 100 pounds, each one of them. So they're very slippery too, to like plop into that mold here, and then they have to tighten this mold, and then after they will slip inside the markings on the wheel. And these guys, again, have to be very strong, so I like this view from over. All of these molds are here, you know, the markings on the wheel of Pecorino Romano. We are VT8, that's our plant number, and it has an address. All of these molds are locked up between when you can't make the cheese. You can only make Pecorino Romano from October to July. We hand salt every wheel. Most of the time, that's not the case for Pecorino Romano. By hand salting, you add the salt more evenly, and the salt can seep through from the outside in, so you have an even salting and not too salty in one spot. If you add a lot of salt on the outside and then you cut the cheese at its finished process, you might have more rind than you want, and so that's not a good value for you as a customer to take it home. So if you see almost no rind on your cheese, that's a great value because you know you can eat it. This cheese is aged at least 10 to 12 months. Most Pecorino Romano by law only has to be aged 5 months, yet it's still not as hard and dry as I said because it's not skimmed, and it has that wonderful milk that comes from these breed of sheep that are so special. And the grain of the cheese is amazing. And I always tell people to play with their cheese and to feel it and to see that when you taste it, yes, it's salty, but it's also sharp because you have a 1 year aged piece of sheep cheese. So that is very, has that salt there. But I can't impress enough like how important this cheese is to us because there's so little of it made, and to be able to have people like yourselves carrying it has been you know, our goal always for people who can understand great cheese to be able to explain the difference, and our family. And I say our family because that I used to be married into that family. Um, and we're still working together. So, and that's because, you know, I really believe in everything that we do and everything that they are.
Well, that cheese, it tastes great tonight. It's, the flavor lingers on your palate. You know its presence. You can feel its presence way after swallowing the last bit of it. It's awesome.
But
A
that's the
great
key.
way
You
to
were
kind
able to
of,
swallow it, right? Because a lot of Pecorino Romano gets stuck on your Adam's apple and it won't go any further. And this is what this is. This is a cheese that you just need a little bit and it'll go a long way. And a lot of times people always want to know the difference between using Pecorino or Parmigiano in cooking. And like for pesto, usually you should use both of them. But in the south, in central to south of Italy, you have bold flavors, lots of spiciness and red sauce and everything. So you need a cheese that's going to stand up to your food. And that's when you want to use Pecorino Romano. And then when you have cream sauces, lighter foods, you know, using Pecorino Romano would just overpower your food. So that's when you use Parmigiano. So there are definite uses. And Caesar salad, I recommend Pecorino Romano because you just need a little bit and that'll give you that big flavor and it'll stand up to the anchovies and everything else in the sauce.
so that was awesome. And y'all, I am so grateful. Michele, thank you. My plate is all empty and I would eat the plate if I could. There's definitely a lot of applause coming through the chat box window. That was delicious. And, you know, this is just scratching the surface of
Oops,
all
I
that
still
you
have this
have
on.
to offer and all that you've shared with me. One of my favorite memories was, well, Tutto Food in Milan. She took me by the hand. I was this young guy that had no idea what I was doing, and a food show that had 22 football fields worth of food to try. And Michele grabbed my hand and walked me around at each booth and said, "This is the one you try." And then
I thought you were going to talk about the cocktail.
well, the cocktails. Well, this is between you and I've enjoyed. I've been drinking my wine with you all night. This has been outstanding.
Yeah. No, I'm saying when we went to drink, looking at the Duomo, and then it kind of just
up on the rooftop.
But
That was my first night finding what a aperitivo was and getting all the food for free. It was amazing. It was what a wonderful experience. So thank you all for being on this event. I think this is just so cool. Thank you, Michele, for being a part of this.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for attending. You have no idea how appreciative I am, and I could just, you know, talk to you forever about cheese, but
well,
thank
I know
you.
there is one customer that wants to ask you about Drunken Goat. So I probably will turn off the recording here in a second, and then we could just hang around and they could ask that question. But y'all, this was, I mean, I'm a cheese geek and I'm just like shaking in my seat. I can't wait to share this video with my team. They're going to go crazy. And
You're so sweet.
thank you all for being a part of this, and hope to see you on a future one. So I'm going to turn off the recording. And
thank you so much.